Trevor. I generally identify as an alcoholic just because it's easier, but I'm an addict, a slut, um, pill popper, fucking thief, liar, fucking yada yada yada. But yeah, I guess I'll go way back to the beginning of before I got addicted, which is all the shit that why I guess I got addicted, and then get to my use, and then get to recovery, because recovery is the huge thing that kind of keeps me going. And I am really stoked that when mine and Katie's life kind of collapsed almost 3 years ago to the day, that she stumbled across Dopey, and it was one of the things that she shared with me, and we've shared cross country, and then from first episode to up to date. And so yeah, I'm a product of the 60s. Southern California. My parents grew up on different sides of the tracks. My dad was from Burbank and my mom was from Glendale, literally across the tracks from each other. My dad was kind of high society and my mom was kind of a immigrant Oklahoman to those parts. But that's basically the roots of when I identify as myself. I'm a Californian through and through. I grew up in Southern California, and then I think my life has basically been split between the two parts of the state, Northern California now and Southern California as a kid, and my early youth. But when I was a little kid, I think the only two things that I ever really aspired to, like when I was really young, was one, I just utterly loved the Dodgers. It was the tie between me and my grandfather, and it's still the huge. I think it's pretty much the only sport that I really truly kind of watch anymore is baseball still. But and then the other thing was I wanted to be a banjo player when I was a kid. I used to have this little. It wasn't even really a banjo when I first started playing. It was those weird shaped kind of like hammerhead spray nozzles that before they came all fancy and you could have all the different things. It was one of those, and I think I put it on the end of a broomstick, and I would stand on a garbage can and I would sing all the Beatles songs that I could sing, and Disco Duck and all that stupid K-Tel shit that came out when I was a kid. But so those were the things that, like, when I was a little kid, before I got into school, that's what I thought I was going to do. I had this, the aspiration that somehow I was good enough to play baseball for the Dodgers, just because I loved all those guys, Steve Garvey, Ron Cey, Dusty Baker was on them, on and on, Tommy Lasorda. And so I thought that, and then somehow without any kind of musical training or whatever, especially playing on a hose nozzle and a trash can, that's about as far as my musical aspirations or talent really got until I started playing the drums in high school. But and then later on. But so yeah, growing up down there, the beach was a huge aspect of my life. I learned how to swim in the ocean before I ever learned how to do anything else. And I haven't told this story since I was in rehab, like almost 7 years ago. So it's I'm delving back for a bit, but it's all whatever. But anyway, so I grew up with like these weird. I'm one of three kids. I'm the middle child. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And again, like my family was kind of torn between our two families. The two families never got together. We either went to my dad's family stuff or we went to my mom's family stuff. They were politically, economically, religiously, they were different in all aspects. Even like when I look at the differences between my family as far as drunks or addicts, my dad's side of the family is really like the respectable kind of drunk. social drinkers, users, all that kind of shit. And my mom's side of the family was prison, death, all that kind of shit. And you know, I kind of identified with that more because it seemed like realistic. I used to open my dad's Coors cans when he would have his beers when we'd be over at their house. And I always loved the sound of cracking open a can from a little age as far as a kid, and they were the old pull tab ones. And so I used to always keep all of his pull tab keys. And I think that was the first taste of alcohol that I ever had was Coors. And never had enough sugar for me, you know? So I wasn't really into alcohol at that point, but you know, when I look at the early attributes that I grew up having as far as a middle child, that later played a huge role as far as my addiction and all that kind of shit was, I grew up being a liar right from the beginning. Sugar was a huge issue, isolation, stealing, that I had such issues with my family. It was, you know, nowadays I think it would be called, you know, domestic violence or whatever. But when I was growing up as a kid, it was just called discipline. But, me and my older brother were, I believe, loosely molested and definitely physically abused by my mom's only brother from an early age until my parents got a divorce. And that played a huge role in mine and my older brother's relationship as far as a lot of the physical violence and abuse that went on between me and him. But, you know, for the most part, I was just this curly haired little fuckhead of a freckled fart as a kid. You know, I was just happy go lucky when I wasn't around my house. I was completely, you know, I had good friends. I liked doing stuff. And for the most part, I was pretty happy. You know, we grew up in LA, and then we moved to this town called Lompoc on the Central Coast, which is tied in with the Air Force base that my dad was at. And then there's a penitentiary where at least Tex Watson went to. I don't know if Charles Manson was there, but so I grew up with this random fear that somehow Charles Manson and Tex Watson were going to get out of prison and come and kill my family for some reason. So I just always believed like there was like this connection, like because I knew who they were and what they did, that they were going to come to our house at some point and just kill us. And you know, I listened, like I said, the Beatles were a huge musical influences on me as far as a kid, and that was one of the many delusions that I've had my entire fucking life. There was some reason that somebody was going to come after me. Something horrible was always going to happen. But, you know, from an early age, I had the addictive nature, you know, it wasn't an OD, but they used to have those little Flintstone chewable vitamins. And I can remember one time, I loved the red ones. And me and my older brother would fucking fight over every goddamn thing. I mean, whatever it was, we would fight about it. He would always somehow get the red one, and I was always get like the green. And another thing, I'm colorblind, not that that matters, but somehow I learned how to tell the difference between the green and the red one, even though those are usually on the colorblind thing. And we would fight about it. So I remember one day getting home from preschool or something, and Sesame Street or something stupid was on, and I was sitting in my little rocking chair, and my mom was taking care of my little brother, and I climbed up, got the vitamins, and I'm just sitting there watching Sesame Street or whatever the fuck it was, and just eating every fucking, you know, it was like pretty much a full bottle. So I, you know, obviously ate all the reds first and then went to the rest of them. And when my mom came in and screamed, the last thing that I kind of remember, because I mean, they were vitamins. I wish that, you know, like it made me tall or have like flowing, beautiful hair or something like that. But all I got from it was my parents made me drink like 3 pints of water until I just barfed. And like, that was like my first introduction into like, you know, like what happens when you overdose. And I remember like not overdosing, but like overindulging, I guess would be the case with that. but I like the feeling, not so much of the puking, but just being able to do whatever the fuck I wanted. And that's basically what I tried to do all the time, as far as if nobody else was around. I just tried to get away with shit. And, you know, I had this Sesame Street coloring or scratch and sniff book. And I remember my mom was vacuuming one time and I'm scratching through it. And like they had, you know, I think Big Bird had a banana, fucking, I don't know what, I think Ernie probably had like a grape sandwich or something like that. And, you know, whatever else. But Oscar had this can of sardines. And I remember scratching it and like, I don't know if the vacuum backfired or what it was, but I remember like scratching it. It was like it was like metallic. It wasn't even like, it didn't smell like stinky fucking fish. It didn't smell like anything that like I knew at that point. All it smelled like was like metallic. When I got like into like addiction, the only thing that I could ever like visualize what that smell was when I was a kid, like whenever I try and think about it and get like melancholic, it was like feeling that it was like that smell that when you ingest cocaine, like when you snort a bunch of cocaine, you get that gasoline taste on the back of your throat and you just want to hock a loogie or whatever. It was like that. And I kept doing that until like I was sitting on the back of the couch and I fell off the back because I inhaled it so much. Like I think I peeled it like to where like I got like this little contact high. And I think, you know, back then, that before California became all eco groovy and shit like that with the suction cups on the gas pumps. My dad had this old oval 56 Volkswagen Beetle that he would take us to like all the practices and shit. And I used to love huffing gasoline as a little kid. It was like my favorite. Like we would usually get to go get candy when we were at the gas station, but I used to just love just sitting by it and just, there was the warmth from it, there was the vapors, there was just all the kinds of things that I loved. And you know, I was a puker basically in everything that I took as I got older. But motion sickness was another thing that like I hated being motion sick, and I still do. But you know, the carousels, anything that could give me like this little rush or whatever when I was a kid, spinning, just anything like whatever the big swings things are that you go to the fair and they spin you around on the giant swings. And once you're on, you fucking can't get off. I just remember just being sick like that all the time, and I fucking hated it. But I also love that feeling right before you hit the ground or before you vomit. Like I love that feeling of like trying to like manage that whatever you have it, Katie, whatever that anxiety, not anxiety. What's the thing where you lose balance in your ear? Anyhow, am I cutting out? Vertigo.
No, you're good. It's vertigo.
Okay. Yeah. So it was like that when I was a kid. Before there was copiers too, we used to have the mimeographs, and they were like the blue copiers. And I would always try and, you know, be the teacher's pet and be the kid that could go make the copiers. And so I, you know, early on, even though by the time I got to high school and people were sniffing Whiteout and Rush and all that kind of shit, I hated that at that point. But like early on, that was kind of like my into fucking getting fucking spun and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I guess those are my early, you know, then I got into making models as a little kid and huffing glue and stuff like that. I never really knew that I was doing that. It's just I was an early huffer. I never got into the spray cans, but so my childhood was basically pretty fucking normal for the most part, minus, you know, the physical abuse, the mental abuse. My family's super sarcastic. And I basically was kind of sheltered in a lot of aspects aside from humor. Like whenever me and my brothers and my dad get together, it's like Don Rickles. If Don Rickles had like triplets. Yeah, the storm's super bad here right now. So just give me a sign if I check out. Anyhow, I'll speed it up because of the storm. But any poop. You know, so for the most part, it was sheltered. Like, but I used to get busted for stuff that my brother would do all the time, and so I just grew up with this guilty conscience and I stopped trusting pretty much anybody that was in charge of me. Um, you know, my parents, especially, because, you know, my dad would go to work, my mom would be home, and my dad would come home and he'd wind up beating me for something that I didn't know that I'd done. The first instance was me and my brother stole my dad's Playboys at one point, and I remember we were just hanging out down the street and we were taking out all the centerfolds and all the other shit. And like, I had no idea. I mean, I was like 5 or 6. Like, I had no clue. I barely knew that what I was at that point, let alone what guys and women did. Like, it was before the joy of sex and all that shit. But anyhow, I guess my brother ratted me out. My dad just beat the fuck out of me for it. And then I like had no idea. Like, and so like I wound up from an early age not trusting my older brother, mainly because of the physical abuse, but also because he would always rat me out for something. And then my mom from an early age, because, you know, she knew most of the stuff that was happening during the day, and then my dad would come home and bust me for it. So you know, that was basically my cycle of distrust and stuff like that. But it was about 6th grade when I basically dropped out of participating in anything. My older brother was in Boy Scouts and I was supposed to be in it, and I would just disappear. We'd go to the functions and I would just walk away, whether it was a camp out, the meeting, whatever it was. I would just take off. I always wanted to be on the periphery. I never wanted to be noticed. And if people noticed me, for the most part, it was because I was getting in trouble, at least with my family and other people. So about 6th grade, I kind of I quit playing baseball. I started getting into, you know, music in a lot of ways. You know, like the early phases of like punk rock. Like, that was when I came involved with like the Clash. I was really into Alice Cooper. I had a bunch of friends that were into Kiss, but I never really got into Kiss so much until like later on. But and that's when doing schoolwork. It was just like, I just didn't see the fucking point at it anymore. So, you know, I think in math we were doing like fractions. So I was really good if it was 1/2 plus 1/2 or 1/2 minus 1/2. But like, if it got any more complicated than common denominators and all that shit, I just didn't know what the fucking do. And so I quit doing schoolwork. And my 6th grade teacher, Miss Price, would keep me during recess. And that was like the only thing that I was basically going to school for in about 6th grade, was the social time, you know? And so she would make me stay in recess. She wouldn't help me. She just would make me try and get caught up on all these assignments that I was missing. And at one point I was just like, this is fucking bullshit, man. Like, I don't think I had the words or the like the gumption to like go fuck you. But like, I did have the ability to lie and steal at that early age. And so I knew that there was really smart girls that rode horses in the class, Beth Ashby and Tiffany Hill and Catherine McCrane and all these girls that did all their homework and turned it in on time. And so once every couple of weeks, when I'd be stuck in detention during recess, I would go through these girls' desks, take their homework for the assignments that I had, just copy it verbatim, and then turn it in, and then I'd be clear for like another 2 weeks. And that's basically the way things would happen at home. I'd get busted for something, I'd do my time as far as, you know, restriction or chores or whatever the fuck it was, and then I'd go right back to doing what it was. So, I mean, I was not outwardly defiant, not so much, but like passive aggressively I was. And so that continued, you know. And so like 6th grade, I started getting into skateboarding and boogie boarding and hanging out at the beach more, and had a couple good friends, and we just started hanging out and listening to music all the time. And so it's funny, I got arrested before I ever tried drugs or drank at all. Me and a friend decided to go spray painting one night when everybody else was TPing houses. And this is in 6th grade, and we ran around people's nice cars and wrote "sit" on them and "fuck you" and "bitch" and all these like stupid words for like, I don't really understand what we were doing, and I don't think my friend did either, because basically all we ever watched was Blues Brothers on early HBO or whatever. We'd stay up all night and eat a bunch of Starburst and watch fucking Blues Brothers over and over and over again. And but But then, you know, that was the end of 6th grade and going into 7th grade, and all the fucking 7th graders. Now we were going in the 7th grade, so all the 8th graders fucking hated us. I'd get on the bus, and there's this kid, Josh. I don't remember what his last name is. It'll probably come up, but he fucking wanted to fight me. And I was just like, "Fuck you, brace face! I'll fucking kill you," or whatever. You know, it was just like so like angry. Cause like I knew I couldn't ever beat up my older brother, but like anybody else that fucking tried to talk shit to me got the full brunt of like all my family hatred against my Uncle Dave, against my dad, against my older brother. And so I would just fucking unload on people. And so that kind of kept us clear for a while, because we would just fucking fight whoever talked shit about us. And so that was 7th grade. 7th grade, me and my friend Fred, we wound up, his dad was a submariner from the Philippines, and he would drink these 40s of the stuff called San Miguel. And one night during summer, he gave us a 40. I mean, fuck, I doubt I was even 60 pounds. And Fred was basically the same as me. You know, we were just these skinny little kids. It's when everybody fucking had the fucking super short OP shorts, and fucking, you know, we had rat tails and fucking crop tops and, you know, tank tops and all that stupid shit. And so me and him drank a 40 together, and it was like the fucking funnest thing that I'd ever done. I mean, like, just the fact of like sharing it and having this secret that I knew that my parents probably were never going to find out. And it just left me with that desire of, I just want to do this. And then I think in between 7th grade and 8th grade, we started smoking pot. Alcohol was really fucking hard to get at that age unless we were hanging out with his older brother and going to the cruise where people drove their fucking cars around Main Street. And we'd sit in the back of his brother's car with our skateboards and try and fucking, you know, go around and finish all the empty cans and try and fucking pick up leftover doobies and shit like that. And I remember the first pipe that I ever made. We went to the hardware store and made it out of like copper fittings that were all screwed on and all this stupid shit. And so early on, like, and I've said this at meetings before, like if I could have just maintained that level of my drug use of just a 40 and either a doobie and a pop pipe, I totally would have been fine. But it just kept increasing, because right after that, I think it was the first time that I smoked cocaine, which was just through a cigarette. We did a cocoa puff, and again, in between probably 8th grade and through high school, got into girls, and just I had no relationship skills whatsoever. My parents divorced when I was about between 7th and 8th grade, and I was totally stoked because I had 2 houses. I had no response. I mean, I was never on grounded again in my life. I didn't have anybody checking on me, because if I'd get in trouble at my mom's house, I would just go over to my dad's house, and they hated communicating with each other. So I would just always say, "Oh, you know, I just thought it'd be my time to hang out with you guys." And so I would go over there and just basically disappear. So basically, I'm going to turn off my screen and see if that helps at all. The storm's super bad, I heard. But anyhow, so I sucked in relationships. I mean, as soon as a relationship got anywhere close to being bad, I would either, you know, I always gave somebody plenty of reasons to break up with me, but in the same breath, you know, there's always infidelity on either side, because I just had no way of truly honestly connecting with somebody, because all I knew how to do was lie. I did not know how to talk about my feelings or any of that kind of crap. So anywho, you know, I think the first and longest relationship that I was in high school only lasted for, I don't know, maybe a year. And as soon as we broke up, depressed, really suicidal, and that's when my drug use just really picked up, because it was the only thing that kind of took away like not feeling loved and all that kind of crap and all the kind of fucking you know, distrust that I had for other people. And so I would just go through flings as far as I would hook up with people at parties, but then I would never fucking call them again. And or I'd kind of be in a relationship with the person, but like if we weren't fucked up or if I wasn't fucked up, I wouldn't really be active in the relationship. And so about, I think 10th grade is when I really started getting into, doing shit like gravity bongs, really increasing my pot and my drinking, but then started getting into psychedelics, really got into like punk rock music, and just going back down to LA, seeing bands, fucking hanging out in places where I had no idea where we were, basically hitchhiking or catching rides or getting ditched somewhere. And it just escalated from there as far as really being into just not being present as much as possible in myself or around other people. I was always the guinea pig for whatever we were getting. So if we would wind up showing up at a Dead show, I was always the person that fucking tested the acid. I remember this one time we were in Santa Cruz and we were going through a bunch of these guys that were hanging out down by these old hippie guys, and they hooked us up with somebody that was selling acid, me a dose, and then I was supposed to go with him to the house. And by the time I got to the house, I was tripping so hard, and it was just a scam to take the fucking money. And, I'm fucking basically lost, high as fuck. I'm feeling the mist coming off the trees that I'm sitting outside in front of the house. And however fucking long later, my friends pull up and they're like, dude, where's the shit? And da 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 da. And I was just like, just spun. And that was just the feeling that I loved. And so I would just bounce between doing a lot of speed and taking a lot of psychedelics, whatever it was, whether it was mescaline, mushrooms, LSD. Used to do a bunch of Jimson weed and shit like that too when we'd go backpacking. But but I was constantly in trouble with the law too. I would get open containers all the time, drunk and disorderly. But I did jail or juvie time as a minor. I had like, I forget what it was. It was like 6 to 8 open containers. I had every pocket that I could have had an open container. And I had one in each hand, and I was just like this fucking just idiot, like I thought somehow I was going to become Jeff Spicoli or something from like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but I had just no aspirations other than being fucked up for the longest time. And that continued for a bunch of years, just doing whatever that was in front of me and avoiding whoever was in front of me. And I think there came a point when I made the switch from living in Southern California to Northern California. I'd shot up a couple times. My friends were getting really into it, and we were at this beach in Oceano. My friends had driven onto the beach, and the car got stuck. And I was kind of like spun out, but I was also just like not wanting to be where I was. And the car got stuck, and that's where everybody just basically started the fucking party at. And I did not want to be there. I did not know how to say I didn't want to be there. I didn't know, I don't want to be whatever the hell it was, but I just wanted to be away. And so I just remember like standing outside of the fucking car for like, it seemed like forever. And then a couple minutes later, I was a couple feet away. And then a couple minutes later, I was further down the beach and then on a road. And then the next thing I remember, I was in front of like a Denny's or a Farmer's Brothers or whatever the fuck it was, some kind of all-night cafe. And there was a bike that wasn't locked in front of the cafe. And I just, I'm spun. Like, I don't even know how long the party had been going at that point. But here I am, just hovering around this bike like a fucking moth in front of at night. And I just said, fuck it. We're like 15 miles away from where I lived. I just took this bike and started riding. And it's like probably like 5 in the morning or something. And I'm just riding, up hills and all this shit, all the back roads back to where I lived. And I made the point at like somewhere along the ride that like, fuck it. Chris is up in Humboldt. I'm gonna become his roommate. I'm gonna get off fucking speed, and I'm gonna become a student. And this is from the guy that quit doing school in 6th grade because of fucking mixed numbers and shit like that. And so I fucking basically had a bunch of shit to get taken care of and all that kind of crap. And I've been getting fired from jobs, losing relationships because of drug use and fucking alcohol. So it was like there was no point in me staying down there. And so like, I heard the term at one point at a meeting when I first got sober of doing a geographic, and it just sounded grammatically incorrect to me. Like I was like, I've never done a geographic or whatever. But like basically I've always done geographics, and that was like the first real one that I did. So I packed up that stolen bike that I had stolen from that Denny's or whatever it was, and a backpack and a sleeping bag, and my mom put my stuff in the car and drove me up to Humboldt County. And I wound up moving in with my friend. But the whole time I'm like going, okay, I'm not going to be doing speed anymore. I'm going to get my fucking shit back together. And all I could do is just massively increase my drinking and my pot, and I'm like, okay, I'm never going to do acid again. I'm never going to do speed again. I'm just going to drink alcohol and smoke weed. And I'm just going to be this little fucking, little Humboldt County hippie or whatever. And I wound up figuring out where these, because there's Cuban cyst mushrooms and there's cyanescence. And cyanescence are the smaller ones, and they grow on the sand spits up there by all the lumber mills. And so I'd wind up riding this bike that I'd stolen from Southern California out to the dunes and pick all these mushrooms. And then we're growing weed inside our house too. And so I'd dry them up on top of the light. And all I would wind up doing is dropping mushrooms and smoking a bunch of pot and drinking a bunch of fucking alcohol. And, like it was just this, basically just the same little hermit that I was in Southern California, and had just transplanted myself, and like, I didn't know that fucking all the dudes in the lumber mills did fucking speed and all that shit. But it wasn't long until I was fucking back on speed because my neighbor worked at the lumber mill and he wanted help growing pot. And so we were just like, it was just a shit show because I had no intestinal fortitude to be any kind of fucking different person than I was. And so, and would still go to fucking dead shows, would still go to like little punk rock shows and just be up this little this little turd or whatever, like I had no aspirations. And I was riding this bike to go to college, but I'd always be late because it was raining up there all the time. And I didn't know that the climate was completely different. I think the only thing that I knew about Humboldt County was River's Edge when they were getting feck weed from Humboldt County. And I just thought it was like this romantic thing. And it's when the pot wars were getting huge up there and the redwood wars were huge. And I was just this little idiot that had no really understanding of anybody outside of my brain. I did. And so wound up going to a bunch of reggae on the rivers in Southern Humboldt, and I met this girl, and same old story that she wound up getting pregnant. And one time I called my dad to get advice. He says, well, you're going to marry her. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking? Like I wasn't even contemplating. I was like hoping that my dad would say like, fucking run, dude, fucking do not do what I did or whatever. And, and so I wound up for a couple months just going on a major bender, disappearing for a super long time on a hitchhiking trip down south, and basically made a bunch of connections with friends and started, moving stuff from Humboldt County down to Southern California. and tried, that's how I was going to support us and all this shit. And I don't think we stayed together uh, longer than a year. I think my Mackenzie was just over a year when we separated, and the agreement that we made was I wouldn't, if I gave my wife at the time full custody, that I wouldn't have to pay child support. And I was so fucked up at the time. It sounded like a deal, but it's totally ruined my relationship with my oldest daughter. And it's, this unmet living amends that I still have, that at some point I hope to have a relationship with her. But at the same time, I don't hold any kind of resentment against her or her mom or the other people that I used to have resentments against as far as our relationship. I have to look back at where I was, and I was completely emotionally unavailable and just completely emotionally stunted as far as the way that I was raised. And then what happened? Actually, there's a story that I forgot to tell. Before I left Southern California, I wound up, I was on this major bender down in Los Angeles and was hitchhiking back home. And I got picked up by this guy that used to pick us up. And he would usually pick me and my friend Bobby up all the time. And so like I saw this guy, and he would usually buy us alcohol. So he picked me up one time, and he's just like, and I was coming down, and he's just like, oh, I got to do this job, but then we'll stop and pick up some alcohol, and then I'll take you up to Santa Barbara. And I was like, all right, fucking cool, dude. And so he picked up a 12 pack, and I wind up drinking it by myself to just kind of, I didn't have anything else at that point, and I fucking passed out. And then we wake up on this back road somewhere, and this guy's basically, well, not basically, he's totally on the verge of fucking raping me. And I try and, panic out of it and fight my way out of it. And for whatever reason, I don't know why he, one, didn't fucking kill me, but two, didn't, just whatever. But for whatever reason, he didn't. But, the whole way back to the highway, he's telling me how he can put me in movies, and he's got some friends I should meet in Santa Barbara, and they would really like me. And I was just like so depressed and low where I was, and so lost that, like, in one sense that sounded like an option, because I was just like, fuck, what does it matter anymore? And then in a whole nother sense, I was just like, it just became everything else that I'd been fighting against my family. And so I jumped out of the van. It was like a work van on Highway 101, and basically just walked from Ventura, or just north of Ventura, Carpinteria, all the way to, like almost 40 miles. And I'd meet a couple people along the way. This one hippie dude in a VW bus gave me like a fucking loaf of bread, some weed, and I don't know what else he gave me, but like I remember just having, like, slipping into this massive psychosis for like the 2 or 3 days that it took me to walk that part of the coast. And I was just running into fucking perverts fucking everywhere. Like everywhere I'd stop, like if I'd pass out on the beach because I wasn't sleeping because I was totally having like PTSD or whatever, and I didn't know, I thought people were just completely after me, or mainly this guy and his friends. But sleeping in abandoned cars behind fucking gas stations and shit. But I'd pass out on the beach, and these fucking weird fucking like hippie dudes with fucking speedos and or fucking naked would come up to me and like ask me if I like needed suntan lotion. I'd be like, I'm fucking wearing clothes, dude. Like, what's your fucking problem? Like, like everywhere I went, I was just like, it was dick, 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 dick. I was like, it was fucking just horrible. And so I like wound up just jumping up on the railroad tracks, and I'm just like, I'm gonna step in front of the first Amtrak that comes by. And so I'm waiting for a train to come by, totally depressed, totally fucking just not wanting to be the person, just not wanting to be anymore. And this fucking raven flies down right in front of me and just up ahead. And it just distracted me just enough to where like I followed this bird, and it eventually like wound up taking me off of the railroad track onto this little trail that ran down behind the railroad track. And as soon as I was off the fucking train tracks, like, a minute, I don't know how long, fucking train goes flying right by me, and so I started talking to this fucking raven because I was so fucking crazy and lost in my head and all the fucking shit that I felt was happening to me at that point. That I just followed this raven, and I think finally the bird got fucking sick of me too, and it flew off. But by that time, I was completely distracted, and I was basically at the point where Highway 1 shoots back inland, and I get on the freeway, and my fucking dad picks me up on the side of the fucking road. And me and him still argue about this because he remembers picking me up in Santa Barbara, but I finally remember that my dad used to pick me up hitchhiking all the fucking time when I'd be coming back from wherever the fuck it was. And it was the weirdest thing because I was just like, fuck, does my dad pick up other fucking young dudes that look like me? And, or does he think, like, was it randomly or like, I don't know. So it used to trip me out a lot, but anyhow, so that was one of that whole incident was one of the main reasons why I wanted to get the fuck away from speed in Southern California and move somewhere else, because it's just like I just had all this shame that like like these fucking people were gonna find me, and every time I'd get fucking high, I would have these thoughts of these these fucking dudes and bands that wanted to fucking shoot me in fucking movies or whatever the fuck their murder scheme was. But I wound up in Humboldt, divorced, had a kid, and basically went back out and was on a just basically right back into shit. I was running pot on my motorcycle down to Southern California, basically bouncing from like jobs of like being a dishwasher to cooks and stuff like that, and having good roommates and just basically partying and being a kid still. But I finally got to a point where I started going to school. I was a shadow student for a while. The guy that I was working with, a roommate, became the chef of the hotel that we were at, and he couldn't do his daytime classes, and so I started taking his classes for him, and I got good grades for him. And I was just like, fuck, man, why can't I do this for myself? And just had this complete doubt about like what I was capable of doing. Like I was afraid of applying to junior colleges because I thought that they were going to turn me down, and I had no idea that all you had to do was pay like $55 at that time, apply for, enroll in the classes, and you're basically in. And so I started going back to classes and got my AA, and then, started going to Humboldt State, and was starting to go into like something like sustainable technology, like solar panels and permaculture and all that kind of stuff. But like the math would always kind of like freak me out. And one day I was at a seminar and people were talking about like, oh, if you just take this class and that class, you could wind up, getting your credential to be a history teacher. And I was like, oh, fucking cool. Like I like history. Like, I had a phobia about being a teacher because of going back to Miss Price in 6th grade and having like cigarette breath and coffee breath and kids being afraid of me or whatever. But like, other than that, I was like, all right, fucking cool. And so I applied for the credential program and got in, and I started becoming, I was a teacher in 2000. So we moved from Humboldt, and I just skipped over 2 of my kids. So I wound up getting, sorry, Aiden and Cade. I wound up meeting my second wife, and tried getting, staying clean for a super long time, as much as possible, aside from like partying. But we had a son, Aiden, and then we had Cade, and then we eventually had, when we moved down to Mendocino County, had our daughter Addie. I had 3 more kids, and have good relationships with all of them, thankfully. But so became a teacher, and like all of my, like was suddenly this professional person with this horrible baggage of feeling like I was a complete loser, that I had all this like shit that I didn't ever want anybody else to know. And so I started creating like this whole separate fucking reality for myself of like, you know, I'm a professional now. And, you know, when I first started teaching, I'd never grown a beard in my life, but all the people in the credential program were like, you look too fucking young. Like, you have to grow a beard. And I was just like, I'm not going to grow a fucking beard. Like, like, I'll look like a fucking pedophile. Like, I don't want to have like facial hair. Like, I had like these weird hangups. Like, my dad had a mustache, and like, I would grow like Dobie Gillis fucking chin beard, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And but like, you know, I always visioned myself facial hair wise as being like a beatnik. Like, I never wanted to be like a professor or anything like that. But and so the first day that I was teaching at Ukiah High School, like, one of the campus security dudes, you know, because it was a big campus. It was like 2,000 plus students and a shitload of fucking teachers. The guy's just like, "What class are you supposed to be in?" I'm like, "It's my prep period." And he's just like, "What? You're a teacher?" And like, totally didn't believe me. And I was just like, "All right, fine, I'll fucking grow a beard." So that was like the first time, like, teaching got me into, not into facial hair, but like the first time that like I had to like look like an adult. And so I started wearing ties, and I started, you know, combing my hair and doing all this, you know, like grown up kind of shit. And so I was a history teacher, but there was a short, you know, I wound up teaching English and geography my first year, freshman English and geography. And then I didn't get rehired per se for the second year, but then a person that's in one of our programs wound up having this meltdown at school, and so they needed a long-term sub, and so I took over these fucking math classes, and I think it was around Halloween or whatever. So I'd been substituting in all different grade levels for a couple months, and I go in to take over this math class, and fucking, it was the exact same math assignment that I quit doing in sixth grade. And so like, I think I took over either on a Friday or on a Thursday. And I just gave them 3 day for the first day that I was in there so that I could get caught up on the homework assignments. And I had to go and study my fucking ass off. Like, my soul depended on it that entire weekend, just to learn how to stay one assignment ahead of them for the, you know, the rest of the school year. And you know, busted my ass. And so here I am, an English and a history teacher teaching math, doing a good job of it. They were going to hire me to be at the continuation high school, and then I got hired for the job where I live now in Point Arena. And so I'm a fucking history and English teacher, and I applied for a math position at this high school, which is like 10 times smaller than the school that I was at. And somehow I beat out all the other math teachers. Like, I don't know if it was my personality or what the hell it was, the tie I was wearing, my nice looking beard, whatever the fuck it was. But I beat these other people out, and, you know, let's start, you know, I think I taught at that school for 16 years. And I fucking love teaching. I love my relationships with the students. It was one of, you know, like, I used to always hear like, oh, if I could just make one difference in, you know, one student's life, you know, then it was all worth it. And I was just like, fuck, man, that just seems like such a waste. You know, I have like 100 kids a year or whatever. If I'm only trying to make a difference in 1% of them, like, fuck that. And, so I just, you know, that's when I learned how to be in relationships. But unfortunately, we were at the same age level, and that's why they work. My drug use, my drinking steadily increased over the years from all the stress. This is extremely fast forwarding, but my relationship with my wife was just horrible. I wound up getting hooked up with this motorcycle social club, and got really heavy into doing meth again, and drinking a lot, and, you know, traveling a lot, and, you know, having this alter ego of, you know, I'm a daytime high school teacher, but on the weekends and whatever else the job was needed to be done, I would take off and do these drug runs down to fucking San Diego or wherever else. And it was mild at first. But then when me and my second wife separated, um, the last 4 years, um, fucking sucked. I mean, they seemed like they were fun, like when I was young again, but it was just this because I knew that I was just being a total dick to my ex-wife as far as like, oh, because it was she left me for another guy, and I was really, like, oh, poor me for a while, but I basically drove her away, and really got caught up into like just serving that self-pity to myself, and was just miserable in so many ways because it's not how I wanted to be. I wasn't being a parent to my three kids plus an adopted boy that we had that was the same age as our middle son, but just became this, this shell of a person. All I was concerned about was just feeding my ego, whatever that was what I did. So I would show up in the classroom fucking hungover. I would show up in the classroom on days of benders. I like could not fucking wait to get out of class some days. It wasn't until like I got clean and sober that I, finally heard some of the stories. But like, fortunately, I never had any inappropriate relationship with any students. I used to say that I never partied with any students, but there was a senior trip that I remember being fully gacked out for days, and then the senior trip happened, and I fucking just could not keep my shit together. And so, like, we were on this whitewater rafting trip somewhere outside of Sacramento on the American River, and this cool little trip that like all I could wait to do was like get the kids back to the cabins and go fucking to the bar or whatever it was going to be for the night. And that's basically what I did whenever we'd be on these trips. Like if it was just a faculty one, like, yeah, I'd go out for drinks, but I would also be, the last one in, and I'd be the most fucked up the next day and just look like shit. I look like a fucking ashtray all the fucking time at these things. But on that trip with those kids, like, came back to do like a room check, and they were fucking partying so fucking hard. I mean, like they had bought, like we had this, Katie will laugh at this campus security guy that we used to have at the school, but guy was, thought that his name was Jeff, and everybody called him Jeff BI because he just totally wanted to be this, super cop. That he was just drunk too. He died from the disease, sadly. But somehow these kids just got, handles of Jägermeister and handles of tequila and fucking everything else. And they come back to their cabins and they're just partying. And I looked at them and I'm just like, this doesn't leave. What happens here, it was like fucking Las Vegas, the high school edition or whatever. It was just like, this doesn't fucking leave here. You guys fucking do your shit. And so I was just like, I'm not staying present. I'm taking off. And so I went, and me and the other fucking guy that was in the same motorcycle group that I was in, or the affiliation, whatever you want to fucking call it, go down to this little pub, and we're fucking hanging out. We're just getting saucy with the locals and score some fucking crank and fucking partying. And, like, I'm like, all right, it's like fucking whatever time it is. Kids got to be asleep. And so I go back and they're still fucking partying. And I was just like, fuck it, And so, I wound up drinking with these kids, and my morals just got lower and lower as far as what I was capable of saying yes to, what I was capable of saying no to. And fortunately, that's one of the only episodes. But, it's an episode. It's not like I can pretend like it didn't happen, that it didn't have significance. But, so that was, I don't know, 2010. My fucking life is just falling apart in every aspect. And, on and on like that, fucking take off out of town, fucking do the same shit over and over again. And at this point, me and my second wife were fully separated. splitting custody with the kids. I'm fighting her over the house and all this other shit. And I take the kids on a trip, and my uncle died, and I meet up with this other lady, and she becomes a connection for moving stuff. And so I start doing all this stuff, and it just gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. And so the tail end of my drinking and using, because is, I don't know, it's like 2013. Me and my ex-wife now, but my second wife, were just fighting all the fucking time, and all I can do is just rage out, not on her. I've never been a domestic abuser or vice versa, minus my family shit, but as far as my upbringing. But I remember racing a friend to the bar, and I basically almost rolled my truck that I was in. And in a way, it should have been a wake up call, but it was more like, oh, fucking got away with that one, and no big deal. And it was like episode like that after episode like that for 6 months. I should have gotten this DUI on this baseball tournament that we were up in Redding, California, and I ran 2 stoplights, and they took pictures with the signal cameras or whatever, So they send me these pictures saying you could have gotten a running the red light. And I look at the picture, and in both the fucking pictures, they're at 2 different times, I have an open container right on the fucking dash of my fucking truck. I didn't have any kids in the car, but they were at the rooms with the other coach, and I'm out getting fucked up and doing my speed and shit. And I'm like, fuck, man, like, dude, get your shit together. And so it fucking, starts fully falling apart. People start saying things at work every so often. And so it gets to the end of that school year. My son's graduating from high school. Baseball team, because I was a baseball coach too, is in the playoffs. And so we get to a game against our rivals, town just from the north. And we'd split the regular season with them. And so this playoff game was going to determine who goes to the next level. And so the whole week, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to fucking drink at all. I'm not going to drink. So I go to the playoff meeting of coaches, and we determine the seeds and all that stuff. And I come home, and the kids all had lice, so I got 4 kids with lice. I'm trying not to fucking drink. My ex-wife is calling me a total scumbag because I can't take care of the kids and all this shit. And, it's like 10 o'clock at night on a fucking Monday night. I'm trying not to drink that week so that I can get through the week. And I go, fuck it. I'm just going to get fucking spun. I'm going to go down in the basement, and I'm just going to do everybody's laundry. They can sleep and see, like I came up with this plan. And so like I did not fucking drink that whole week until Saturday, but I was basically fucking spun the whole fucking week, just trying to like, deal with shit and get through this and get through that. And it fucking sucked. It fucking sucked because I'm teaching classes during the day, doing baseball practice after school, spinning. Finally get to Saturday, we get to the game, we kill the other fucking team. I think it was like 14-0, just slaughtered them. And I'm like, just like, I can finally drink. Like that's the only thing I cared about. I just wanted something. And so, my kids were with me up at the game, came home, dropped them off, said, I'm going to go down and have a victory drink. And that's probably the last thing that I said to him until I got out of jail. And I was blacked out. Probably maybe the 3rd drink, because the alcohol was just kind of soothing everything else that I was on. And I don't know what really happened or how long I was there. I've heard different stories. My girlfriend's kind of filled in most of the missing pieces for me. But basically what happened was I drove my Suburban into 2 cars, either 3 or 4 times. Like I could not make this fucking turn. I was so fucking blacked out. I was trying to make a left turn to go home, and fucking tagged this Toyota Tacoma with my Suburban once, and then basically did the Milwaukee Crunch on this Prius and just flattened it. It was like, Bigfoot demolition derby shit. And for the longest time when I first got sober, that's the feeling that I wanted to feel like what it was like. It was like, fuck, man, I was Arthur Fonzarelli. I was fucking rolling over cars, but I was so fucking blacked out that when they pulled me out of the car, um, and my girlfriend was one of the ones that helped me, but the guy whose Tacoma I hit was just pounding me in the head. And it was like the fourth or fifth time that he hit me right on my fucking ear. And I remember, like, slow motion, looking over at him and grabbing his hand with one of my hands. And then somebody came in from the other side and turned off the truck. And it was like a brief moment of like sobriety, or the most sobriety that I'd had in those couple, that day, that week, or whatever. But, and I was like, fuck. And, Amy, my girlfriend, got the dude that was punching me in the head off me and away from me. And she's just all, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just trying to go home. Like, what are you talking about? So, I have no vision. And she points over at the fucking smashed up Prius and the banged up Tacoma. And she's all, look what you did. And I looked at the front of the Suburban, and I only had a broken headlight and the bumper was slightly bent, I'm like, I don't fucking do that. Like, that's bullshit. Like, I gotta go home. And right then, the cop car, you can hear the sirens coming closer to the scene. And I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, oblivious of anything that's really going on, but just fucking just like, and I just said to her, I'm like, or this is what she's told me that I said to her. The only thing that I could say was, I gotta pee. And I got to go pee before the cops arrested me and took me over the hill. And it was this big old social media bullshit thing, front page of the newspaper and all this fucking shit with a swollen head and a stupid fucking baseball coach mustache all waxed and fucking shit. But, I wish that I can say that, that day, which was like a Memorial Day weekend, that's my sobriety date, but it wasn't for like another month that I got sober. When I went in the rehab, that like for the longest time, like that's what I would bitch about. Of like, oh, I wish, because I was an angry motherfucker. I had a lot of shit that happened to me as a kid, as a young adult, but like I wasn't present for most of it. It was all just bottled down, and I thought that that's what I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel that anger, that power of just destroying vehicles. And when I started looking at it, I was just like, this is on Highway 1, which is a big old tourist highway here in California. And there's fucking Germans and all kinds of people riding their bikes barefoot all the time down the coast to, take pictures of themselves for their Facebook pages and shit. And I didn't hit them. Nobody was in the two cars that I hit. There was no kids running across the street for ice cream, because where I hit the two cars was right in front of this grocery store. It was Memorial Day weekend. There was people all over the place. The town, we just won this baseball game, and I fucking just made this just horrible scene of my fucking life, and that so went in the jail, and fucking at that time they were trying to charge me with a couple felonies, which in the long run got dropped. The school supported me at that point and put me in the rehab, and I got, I started being sober. I at least started not drinking, but when I got out of rehab, I had to come back and teach. And the hindsight thing that I always have as far as where my life has been is, I wish I'd taken that year off, and not gone back to teaching, because I had no idea how to teach, to do my job, or to be anything and sober, but definitely teaching, because I never got through a full day without either going in with a hangover or having something on my prep period, or just getting fucked up as soon as I got off campus. And it just it wasn't my first DUI, but it was definitely the one that just kind of set the red flag for everybody else to like, oh, dude, get your shit together. And so I continued to drink and use for another month or so until I went in the rehab, got out, and I just instantly had conflicts with fucking everybody, every administrator that we had, every fucking person that I didn't like. I think that's when Katie started teaching at the high school. But I didn't know what to do, and I was totally resistant to going back to fucking meetings. Like, I felt like I'd done my time by going to rehab. I did my fucking 28 days, you know, like I could have done jail time, especially if there'd been anybody injured and all this other crap. But I was just like, no, this is bullshit. And so got really depressed, really fucking angry. And especially when it would come time for my prep periods. And the only thing that really saved me, I wish Dopey was around at that point. Because this is 2014. But my during my prep period, which was at the end of the day, because I was still technically the baseball coach, even though I was on probation for a year, and they were piss testing me and all the other kind of stuff that goes along with that kind of legal shit. But I came across the Foo Fighters last episode on David Letterman's show, where they playing at the Ed Sullivan Theater, and they dress up like the Beatles and they play the Wasting Light album. And I would watch that, all those, the entire video clip, it'd be like an hour plus long. They'd play that entire album, and then they go through their greatest hits. And it was just like, I don't know why that saved me, but somehow that saved me in those first couple months, because I was not going to meetings. And I started going back to meetings about at 6 months to get my court card and all that shit signed. And I was still resistant. I was just like, this is bullshit, like, why do I have to do this? I was feeling like terminally unique, and like I was being punished again for something that I didn't do. And I finally, and that continued for like shit. I think when I got finally fired for the high school sober, because I was such a fucking asshole, a lovable asshole, but an asshole nonetheless. I was almost, it was about this time. So I was, I'm on the vert, I'm like 6+ years sober now. But I look back to that point of almost 3 years ago is where my recovery really started, because I had to start being honest. I was lying to everybody about everything. My first sponsor, I basically just blew that guy off. I feel so bad for how much I lied to him about what I was doing with my steps. But I totally, so basically what happened, and this will be, I guess where I kind of finish up, because it seems like it's been a really fucking long time. And I'm hoping this is still recording now. I don't know if it is. I might just be talking to myself. But I fucking, well, Katie got into her place. We were going to meetings together. She had a surgery. Her shit kind of hit the fan. And I was at this, I think it was at a union medical benefits training on a Friday, and I'm coming home, and Katie texted me and said, "Hey, can we talk?" And I go, "Yeah, what's up?" She says, "Oh no, we need to talk." And so she, I pull over and I go, "What's going on?" She says, "Oh, the cops came to my room today," and like I kind of knew what was going on, but I didn't know what was going on. And so that was on a Friday, and so we kind of talked, and like my heart was just like fucking shattered and blown away. And the whole time there's this investigation going on about me, because I'd let these kids from my baseball team use keys to play on this prank against this dislike teacher that was leaving before the third quarter was even over. She was bailing to go do something else for herself. And me and this lady have had numerous like pedagogical and fucking philosophical and all kind. I mean, we just clashed all the fucking time. And so I let the kids have my keys to just go in and play this prank. Well, they went in and they fucking just basically did a fucking napalm strike on her fucking room. Wrote fucking this horrible quote on her room. She's a lesbian, and which was not one of my issues that I had with her at all. And they wrote Dr. Dyke on her board, or goodbye Dr. Dyke or something like that, and fucking tore up the room, which was kind of a practice that the kids did. But again, I can't fucking hide from my responsibility. I was supposedly quote unquote the adult, and I let these fucking kids have the keys, go in there and trash it. I never checked it. And then when I saw what I had let them do, it just mortified me. Like like all the shame going back to being physically and sexually abused as a kid, and then the episode when I was hitchhiking, um, my shitty relationships. I mean, just everything just came to a head, and I was just like, "Fuck this! I'm not admitting to this. Like, I'm just gonna wait till it disappears." And that was like my big fucking plan. This is just gonna roll over, and everybody just blew up, and it took them a couple weeks to put all the pieces together. I was the only one on campus besides janitors and I think the superintendent and maybe the principal that had a key to all the classrooms. It was just this stupid. I mean, like I should have known to try and be honest, but I fucking just went back to my fail safes of just distrust everybody and lie about fucking everything. And this is sober. Like this is, like I said, like 3 years sober and just a shitty fucking program at that point. And so, this Katie calls me on Friday and we talk, and she's trying to get herself on what she needs to get herself on so that she can take what was going on with her and get through the Saturday and Sunday. And me and my girlfriend were kind of fighting on Sunday because I had this guilt from all this shit. There was like almost a month that it took them to get to the figuring out that I'd done this and let the kids do that. And I go to work on Monday and teaching my classes, and at the end of the day they call me down to the principal's office, and the superintendent and the principal are there, and they're all, they asked me a couple of questions. Were you the one that gave the kids the keys? And I was just like, yeah. And I was just like, it just took me back to so many episodes of being a little kid and being caught by my parents. Thankfully, unthankfully, they didn't whip me with a belt and send me to my room. They were like, fucking, you got to get off campus. I got put on administrative leave. And I've been close to going back out and using. And at that point, like I knew, or I at least felt that that wasn't an option. What I really wanted to fucking do was just fucking kill myself. I wanted to just die. I just wanted to disappear so I didn't have to face any of the consequences. And so when Katie started coming back into the rooms, I was going to the rooms too. And after every morning meeting that I'd go to, I would drive to this cliff and just contemplate fucking killing myself, just like disappearing. And the only thing that ever kind of stopped me from doing it was one, that I knew that most things that I didn't wind up ending the way that I wanted them to. So I knew that I probably wouldn't kill myself. I'd probably break every bone in my body and be this horrible mess. And then, like I'd still have to face the music or whatever. But like it was my kids. I'd already failed one child in my life, or two, myself and my oldest daughter. But then, two of my boys had already graduated high school. My daughter was in 8th grade, and it was just this fucking, here I am being a fucking shit show again. And it was just, I just fucking hated myself. I hated myself so fucking much that I was willing to leave all the people that loved me to have to fucking sort out the fucking mess of what I'd done to my life. And so, suicide seemed like the only thing. So I would do that every fucking day. I would sit on that cliff and, I would try and talk to my sponsor and go to meetings and be honest and talk about shit. But it fucking just hurt too much because I never went back. And so I started going to therapy again and talking about what's really, where all this shit came from. And, I never understood that whole line of, about being rigorously honest. Like I just thought like, yeah, there's honesty and then there's honesty. I didn't know that, like there was different degrees, just like there's different degrees of emotions. And it fucking just ground me like to a fucking pulp. And luckily I was in program and I got a shitload of support. from everybody that, like I trusted enough to like know what was truly going on with me, and people thought I was going to get my job back. And I could have probably fought it the first time and probably gotten an outcome to where I could have kept my credential, but like I had so much guilt from all the fucking from my drug use at school and on campus, and from I was waiting for all this other evidence to come up from, like the senior trip and all the fucking other events that had happened in my teaching credential. And I was just like, fuck this. Like I'm willing to walk away from it all and try and learn how to be happy just being myself. And so when all that shit was happening, I went from being on the classroom onto a fucking crab boat. And I fucking puked more than I ever puked on any drug uh, or alcohol cumulatively in my life. That first day that I was on the crab boat, I puked from I think the second crab boat. I mean, like we had the pots hadn't been pulled and turned in like a month. So I mean, whatever the worst human like death smell there is, that's what the crab pots came up smelling like. And I made it through. I think the bet was that I was either not going to make it through any of the pots and start puking, or I was going to make it through 10. I think I made it through 4, and then I just started puking. Like the captain of the boat was just like, "It sounds like you're speaking North Korean." Like I've never heard somebody puke that hard before. I mean, like I wasn't even puking. I was like having a hemorrhoid of the fucking mouth. I was puking so fucking hard. Like everything in my entire life that had any sort of residue on my intestines came out, and it was the worst fucking experience. But like I did not think about the school or the court cases or anything else that was going on for those fucking 8 hours that I was on that boat puking. And I got off the dock that day, and the captain said, "We're going back out tomorrow." And I said, "Fucking awesome, I'm down." And so that was the beginning of me kind of learning how to like just do what I was supposed to do, like in the fucking program. And I started applying the principles at that fucking point in my life, and it was fucking hard, but like it's what I should have done early on, and it's the way that I work with guys now when I'm in the program with them. Is I make it easy, but we also just work our asses off, because I've seen what happens, at least for myself, if I don't put myself in that point. And so that was April of 2018. And I think that's about the time that right around there, when Katie moved up to just north of here, that she introduced me to Dopey, and I fucking just fell in love with the stories, mainly just not so much the stories, but the fucking laughter. Because when me and Katie first met and we're hanging out with my current sponsor, we went out for pizza, and we just laughed our asses off. My sponsor was talking to me about, or me and Katie, about why he liked the type of porn that he liked. And it was just like, he's a 70-year-old gay guy from Utah. But I love him like he's my fucking dad. I trust him more than I trust my dad. He knows more about me than anybody in my family knows. I mean, most people in recovery know more about me than my blood family. And that's the thing that I have, learned to grow. I've, gravitated more towards dopey meetings in the past couple months than my AA and my NA meetings, because of it takes me back to being in rehab, as far as like we're all in this to fucking together. And like when I look back at like the first couple episodes, I think the first episode that I ever heard was the gayest episode ever. I think it was the title of it, and I was just like, I'm like having this picture of Katie in my head, like, why the fuck do you have me listening to this, like this gay website, this gay podcast or whatever, and like I'm listening to it and just hearing the fucking laughter, the fucking, and the stories. And there's so much shit that just came back of like, oh my fucking God, I remember that. And Chris and Dave's laugh when Chris was still alive, Chris's laugh, the stories are not the stupidity. It's basically the way that I am with the people in my recoveries. It's like I love talking about the heavy shit, but I also love just being able to be free and talk about whatever, because fuck, man, if sobriety or being clean isn't fucking fun, it's just, I mean, I know what misery is, and I don't want to be, because I, you know, whatever you call it, a dry drunk. I did that for 3 years, and it was by far the worst thing. I should have been drinking. I should have been using the entire time. And I don't suggest that to somebody like, oh, if you're miserable, just drink and use. But like, I was just, I was just angry and bitter, and I wasn't looking for a solution. I was talking solutions, but I was not working for a solution. And you know, these last, fuck, it's weird to think that it's been 3 years, 2 years. What is it, 2021? Yeah, almost 3 years that I like, it almost feels like I never did talk. I mean, I love the profession. I love people that are active and honest in the profession. And for that matter, you know, like it's my grandmother before she died. We used to talk about that. She was a teacher back in the, you know, in her day. But there's just so much about programs that, you know, and I've just had to come to believe that it's all based on intentions. If I don't have good intentions as far as what I'm trying to do, then it's fucked, you know, and I'm going to make a fuck situation out of it, and I'm going to hurt somebody or hurt myself. And so, and that's for me. Like, I don't really try and get caught up anymore on what other people do. So it's been a long, hard path. I mean, there's a lot of shit that I skimmed over, but I didn't want to take up too much time. But I am really grateful for, and I'm stoked that Stephanie and I get to share 621 as far as a recovery date, because I think it's important to have connections with people, as random as they may be. It's those things that I do look for now as far as similarities, because I don't have a lot in common with everybody, but I also don't look for those differences anymore. And so I'm extremely grateful for my friendship with Katie, because it's the first platonic relationship that I've had in my life since I was probably a little kid, you know, before any of that. And, you know, someone to completely trust. She is my sister. And that's what I appreciate about this program overall, is I gain new brothers and new sisters all the time by people just saying, I'm fucking struggling, and just either being able to offer a suggestion, to listen, or be present. It's what I really get out of doing this thing called recovery, because when I was doing it my way, it fucking sucked, and I sucked. And, you know, to just get a little bit of clarity, to not be full of ego, you know, it's just great. And so, I mean, I love the Dopey meetings. I really love the Patreon meetings and the after party and all that kind of stuff that what we each bring, it adds to each of us. So I believe that's all I have. I hope this has been on the whole time, because I'll never be able to repeat it. So I'm going to try and turn on my camera, and I am out. Love y'all. Peace.